President Xi Jinping attends opening session of China's top consultative body, the CPPCC. Hong Kong deputies and chief executive prepare to attend tomorrow's National People's Congress session. US and German leaders show united front on Ukraine. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Thousands of delegates from across the country are gathering in Beijing for the start of the annual two sessions this weekend. The meetings are from the Chinese Parliament, the National People's Congress, and the country's top consultative body, the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. Kickstarting the two major political events today was the CPPCC. Jackie Lin reports.
The first session of the 14th Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference National Committee opened in the Great Hall of the People. Set to last 7.5 days, today's meeting was attended by President Xi Jinping, with the CPPCC's Chairman Wang Yang delivering his last work report in the top role. Looking back, Wang described the past 5 years as extremely extraordinary. Wang said the CPPCC had worked to implement the party's full leadership over the consultative body, with precise proposals formulated to help with people's welfare. During his tenure, the CPPCC also offered more than 3,000 suggestions on the country's fight against the COVID pandemic. Wang said there was practical advice on the development of the Greater Bay Area, the establishment of the national security law in Hong Kong, and the SAR's electoral system. On relations with the West, Wang noted the CPPCC carried forward their fighting spirit, with stern statements issued in relation to Western bills concerning Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Xinjiang. He also mentioned the stern statements issued in response to Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. On ethnic minority and religion work, Wang said the focus was on forging a strong sense of community for the Chinese nation, applying the principle that religions in China must be Chinese in orientation. Looking forward, Wang said the CPPCC should fulfill the spirit of the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, so as to serve the state and the country. Some new Hong Kong members in the advisory body were former lawmaker Lau Kong-wah and Sun Hung Kai Properties Executive Director Adam Kwok. Both vowed to help bolster the nation's development. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Former Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying, who is expected to retain his role as the Vice Chairman of the National Committee of the CPPCC, said he hopes the body's members will continue to stand firm in carrying out their duties in this new term. Leung said a lot of things happened in Hong Kong over the past 5 years, and he hopes the Hong Kong members in CPPCC could keep in touch and learn from each other. He added the consultative body is not just an honorary committee, but one with a duty to fulfill. The first session of the 14th National People's Congress, or the NPC, will open tomorrow and will last for 8.5 days. Chief Executive John Lee will attend the opening ceremony of the session for the first time tomorrow.
This morning, Hong Kong deputies of the National People's Congress attended a preparatory meeting. They also took a picture in front of the Great Hall of the People. During the meeting, members of the Presidium of the NPC were elected. Sources say Ma Fung Kwok, leader of the city's delegates, and Starry Lee were on the list of the Presidium. According to previous practice, apart from the leader, the other person who made it to the list would be a front-runner to become the sole delegate to the NPC Standing Committee. In this case, Starry Lee could succeed Tam Neu-chung, who is soon stepping down from the position. Chief Executive John Lee today also set off to Beijing to attend tomorrow's opening ceremony of the session for the first time. Before he left the city, Lee said he has been meeting different deputies of the NPC and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. Lee said he will bring the deputies together to demonstrate the power of patriots ruling Hong Kong. He added, together they will promote Hong Kong's integration into the development of the country and the Greater Bay Area. The CE added the decisions made during the two sessions will be closely linked to the implementation of one country, two systems, so he hopes that the public will pay more attention to related reports and news. John Lee will come back to Hong Kong shortly after the opening ceremony. He will then return to Beijing for the closing ceremony, followed by a short stay where he is expected to meet with various departments and officials.
A press conference was held today ahead of tomorrow's NPC session opening. Spokesman Wang Chao said the national security law has turned Hong Kong from chaos to order. Wang said since the law was adopted at the 13th NPC in 2020, the system for safeguarding national security in Hong Kong has been continuously improving. Wang also commented on the rise in China's national defense spending. He said it was needed to maintain China as a great power, with defense spending as a share of GDP remaining stable over the years and below global average. In addition, Wang reiterated China's commitment to developing close ties with Europe, working together to oppose a new Cold War, avoid confrontation and prevent economic decoupling. 3 Hong Kong activists that organize annual vigils commemorating China's 1989 crackdown on pro-democracy protesters were convicted today. They failed to provide authorities with information on the group in accordance with the national security law. Chow Hang-tung, Tang Ngok Huan and Choi Hon-kwong were arrested in 2021. They were leaders of the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China before it disbanded under the law. Police had sought details about its operations and finances in connection with alleged links to democracy groups overseas, accusing it of being a foreign agent, but the group refused to cooperate. Overseas, U.S. President Joe Biden met German Chancellor Olaf Scholz at the White House on Friday as they vowed to support Ukraine in its war against Russia for as long as it takes. The private meeting came as Ukraine and its allies prepare for a difficult next phase amid softening political resolve to keep providing Kyiv with billions of dollars in military and other aid.
And I want to thank you, Olaf, for your strong and steady leadership. I mean that sincerely. It's made a world of difference. And, I would argue that beyond your military support, the moral support you gave to the Ukrainians has been profound. It's been profound.
And it's really important that we acted together. And at this time, I think it is very important that we give the message that we will continue to do so as long as it takes and as long as it is necessary.
The U.S. and Germany have worked closely together to supply Ukraine with military and humanitarian assistance. But there has also been friction over issues such as providing tanks, and Washington has occasionally grown frustrated with Berlin's hesitance. Protests in Greece following the deadly rail crash on Tuesday are growing and are turning violent. David Garrett reports.
Friday night outside the Greek parliament. Since Tuesday's rail disaster, anger has seeped out onto the streets. Many Greeks are blaming politicians and their policies for the accident, as protesters threw petrol bombs and fireworks at the seat of power. Police were forced to use tear gas to push them back. These incidents were not confined to the capital. Thessaloniki saw similar scenes of fury. Police were again deployed to the city centre. Fires were started in residential roads and objects were thrown. Thessaloniki was the destination of the overnight train service from Athens that collided with a freight train around midnight on Tuesday. Many of the dead are students heading back to university after the holidays. Thousands, mostly young, took to the streets of Greece's second largest city. The banner reads, "Privatisations cost lives." In Athens, Thessaloniki and other cities, students have scrawled "murderers" in large red letters on pavements, aiming their anger at ministers. Funerals have already been taking place. Hundreds lined the steps of this church to pay tribute to a 34-year-old mother. Many said they felt they had to be there as the whole country suffers collective grief. At the site of the crash, the identification of victims continues. The burnt-out carriages have made it a challenging process. Although investigators believe they have identified all the dead, they admit they cannot be certain yet. The battered cars are being lifted from the scene. Greek railway workers continued their strike into a second day on Friday. Even those who know the transport network are blaming the crash on a lack of investment and are refusing to work. David Garrett, TVB News.
Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly has told Beijing's Foreign Minister Qin Gang during the G20 summit that Ottawa would not tolerate interference in its internal affairs. It comes after a Canadian parliamentary committee on Thursday passed a non-binding motion calling for a public inquiry into alleged Chinese meddling in the past 2 elections. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and security officials insist the election outcomes were not altered. This after Canadian media published detailed reports of Beijing interference, citing anonymous intelligence sources. Qin Gang rejected the allegations as completely false and nonsensical. Still ahead on tonight's news. Senior Boeing executive confident about Hong Kong's aviation future. Top U.S. lawyer sentenced to life imprisonment for killing wife and son. Tornadoes hit Texas. Welcome back to TVB News. A senior executive from Boeing says Hong Kong's aviation market is speedily recovering, adding he is confident the city can maintain its status as a global aviation hub. Although China and U.S. relations have become more complicated, Boeing believes it will still be able to attract orders from mainland carriers.
Hong Kong's aviation business was almost at a standstill over the past few years as a result of the COVID pandemic. Many carriers grounded their entire fleet, while others postponed the delivery of new aircraft. The International Air Transport Association was reported as saying Hong Kong had lost its position of an aviation hub and will need more time to rebuild that status. It also thinks that the SAR's aviation business will only be back to pre-pandemic levels in 2028 at the earliest. TVB News spoke with Boeing's chief of commercial airplanes, who is perhaps seeing things from a different perspective.
Our view of market recovery has always been in that 24 to 25 timeframe. We're going to stick to that outlook. This market has come back fairly fast. I do see Hong Kong re-emerging. No doubt, we all went through a difficult period with COVID, and Hong Kong was hit quite hard. But, spending time here this week, it's great. It's apparent Hong Kong's back. Hello, Hong Kong, one more time.
Deal also noted Boeing marked the 50th anniversary of its partnership with China in July last year, although Sino-US relations have soured in recent years.
Part of that competition is continuing to work with China, not only on the airline side, but our supplier equation as part of that includes China. In Hong Kong, we've done work here, not only with Cathay, HAECO. So we love to be in the ecosystem that buys our airplanes, and our product strategy is working. We've got great products from wide bodies to the narrow body. We're very satisfied where we're at today.
Secretary for Innovation, Technology and Industry Sun Dong said the government will set up a committee to study how Hong Kong could implement artificial intelligence technology. This as AI chatbot ChatGPT has been spotlighted around the world and also in the SAR, with several universities limiting its use by students. Sun Dong said the government is open to embracing new technologies because no one can stop the emergence of some new technologies. With the recently unveiled budget having proposed the establishment of an AI supercomputing center, concerns linger over the cost of building this AI center. On that, the innovation chief said it is worth the investment because the center could help attract talent from around the world. The 6th person arrested in connection with the murdered model Abby Choi's case will appear in Kowloon City Magistrates Court on Monday. The 41-year-old man works at a yacht company. He is a friend of Choi's former husband and was arrested in Shangwan on suspicion of criminal facilitation. The man is said to have pocketed hundreds of thousands of dollars to help other suspects flee Hong Kong. All 5 other suspects have all been prosecuted. The dismembered body of the 28-year-old model Abby Choi was found in a village in Tai Po last week. Overseas, a top U.S. lawyer has been sentenced to consecutive lifetimes in prison. Alex Murdaugh was found guilty of murdering his wife and son. Nazvi Karim reports.
I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my wife Maggie, and I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son Paw.
And it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become when you take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opioid pills.
And with that, well-known U.S. lawyer Alex Murdaugh, found guilty of murder in the shooting deaths of his wife Maggie and son Paul in June 2021, was given the sentence almost everyone expected.
I sentence you for a term of the rest of your natural life.
Given consecutive life sentences in the same court where 4 generations of Murdaughs had practiced, he was portrayed as a liar and a thief. The motive for murder was to keep under wraps, stealing money to fuel his opioid addiction. He was found guilty of using a rifle to kill his 22-year-old son Paul and 52-year-old wife Maggie at some dog kennels on June 7, 2021. Jurors took just 3 hours to deliberate. 9 jurors had guilty votes in an internal ballot, and the other 3 were quickly convinced because of video footage on Paul's phone, minutes before the killings at the same kennels near where the bodies were found. The defense has vowed to appeal.
The family came to trial every day for 6 weeks, expecting to hear proof positive that he killed Maggie and Paul, something that they had not heard before. After 6 weeks of trial, they came away more convinced that he did not do this.
The chief investigator in the case, Mark Keel, said he thought justice was served.
Alex Murdaugh has now been rightfully found guilty of murdering his wife Maggie and Paul. He was found guilty because he was guilty.
Murdaugh will undergo medical evaluation for about 6 weeks before being moved to a maximum security state prison with no chance of parole. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Yes, sir.
Many parts of the U.S. continue to be battered by challenging weather conditions as tornadoes touched down in Texas and Louisiana. This report from NBC News.
Tonight, a deadly storm system launching devastating winds.
Tornado crossing the road right in front of us.
And a frightening spree of tornadoes.
It's hitting debris. We got debris in the air.
Is it a house?
Yep, debris in the air.
In 24 hours, at least 7 twisters have carved destructive paths through 4 states, tossing semi-trucks on highways and leaving homes in pieces.
My truck was shaking. The neighbors lost their roof. We lost part of our roof.
In Texas, the power of straight-line winds, undeniable. Gusts topping 70 miles per hour, shredding a boat marina in seconds, tearing off its roof, sending debris flying. In Alabama, some woke up to a nightmare.
We didn't hear anything until plywood crashed through our window, so all we heard was a giant crash.
Tonight, high winds and flash flooding, responsible for at least 5 deaths across several states. Now, as the storm churns east, more than 80 million Americans are under wind alerts.
So Princeton, this storm is right on top of you. The wind gusts here, 60 miles per hour likely.
At least 1 reported tornado hitting Kentucky.
We have already lost way too many people due to flooding, tornadoes, and other weather events. So we want everybody to be safe today.
And that's the news. Thanks for watching.